Hi, I am Krista. I have this thing where I help people go through the emotional side of Meniere's disease while we continue to help people lower symptoms. And the biggest thing that we talk about in client sessions is this fear, stress, anxiety, feeling like we're, we're going crazy. We're the only ones that have these kind of thoughts, not knowing how to get through the day. So I wanted to shoot a quick video and talk about what stress and anxiety really is. It seems complicated, scary, uh, don't know what to do about it, but all it really is, all stress and anxiety is not knowing what to do about stuff we feel like we can't control. Um, Stress and anxiety, especially for us Meniere's people, is we go through an experience that is so horrifying and so mysterious that it creates a sense of fear for any kind of activity surrounding that original experience. Um, for me, my first Meniere's episode happened when I was with friends. We were at dinner, um, and I had my first Meniere's episode where the room started to spin. I felt like I couldn't stand up anymore. We were away from home. I had to ask for help in a public situation. People had to actually walk me out to the car and drive me home, get me upstairs. I was living in an apartment. I had to get up an elevator. And because I didn't know what was going on, I didn't know what to do about it, I started creating a story around that first experience. So stress and anxiety is not knowing how to control, not knowing what to do about stuff we feel like we can't control. And so we have the experience. We don't know what to do about it. We feel like we can't control it. And so we start to build a story around it. So what I started doing is after that first experience, I started building little stories around other potential areas for that stress and anxiety. I had a lot of difficulty leaving the house. It was a vague anxiety that was really about a story in my head that started from that first experience. I would say, I can't go very far from my home because what happens if I have a Meniere's episode and I can't come back? And so what I would do is I would hide away. I would get up, feel like I had all the courage in the world around, say, 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I had already had 6 or 8 hours of this story of what happens if I leave the house? What happens if I can't come back? What happens if I can't find help? What am I going to do about my symptoms? What if I can't work? And it's this story that causes that anxiety. And I want to really stress this because the key to getting out of it is realizing that the thing that you're feeling feels real, but it's actually based on what we do with an experience, how we remember that experience, and how we believe that experience is going to shape our future experiences. That's probably a complicated way to say you're not crazy. It's just that you take somebody, you put them in a situation where in 1 minute you're standing, you're speaking to people, you're having a good day, and the very next minute you're having to have people walk you out and walk you back home, and then not knowing what to do with all of that. So how you start to get out of that is by first realizing that all of us have had an experience of a situation that we couldn't control. And then the next part of our life after that experience is living a life knowing that that experience can happen again, and how do we get control of that? How do we take back control of that? So I'm going to give you a couple of ways to do that right now. Is first, you realize that the feeling of stress and anxiety is very real, but it's created by how we talk to ourselves about these other experiences that created the anxiety in the first place. So it feels real. You're not crazy. It happens to all of us. It's about how we've responded to that first experience, and then the story that we create about the what if that happens again. So if you know that, if you're in a state of stress and anxiety and you're feeling it, and you know that it is about how you're responding to an experience, it's the story about that experience, then you can start to get the idea that it's not you. It feels real. It's a story. The story happened because of this experience. It's not you. And then what you do is you start to create little actions that recreate a new experience, that you can believe, that you can go a little bit farther, that you can go ahead and look for the kinds of jobs that you can work. Because you know that the anxiety happened to you, but it is not you. It's real in the sense that it feels real, but it's not real in the sense that the story isn't real. If you drive on the highway and you have the experience of having a Meniere's episode, that happened, but it's still not true that it's going to happen the next time you get on the highway. That's not to say everybody should get out on the highway and drive. That's to make it very clear that anxiety is based on the story coming from the first experience. So the way to get over that is to realize that it's not you, it's the story, and then you create little actions that create new experiences and new stories, so that you can say, well, it's true I had this experience, but it's also true that I had this other experience. You know, that first time that I was out with people and I was embarrassed and terrified and had to be held by the hand and walked back home, that really happened. But it's also true that I was able to have experiences that weren't like that. The problem with fear is that it's louder. Fear is louder than positive experiences. So we'll always remember the negative experience more than we'll remember the positive experience. It's not anybody's fault. It's just the way that our mind works. And so what I started doing is noticing the story. It's like, okay, when my mind's telling me that I can't, if I leave the house. Hi, Babsy. How are you doing? Good morning. It's morning here. It's snowing over here. Anyway, we're talking about experiences. What I would do is I would start to say, all right, I'm having physical anxiety. You know, my heart's beating. You know, my chest feels tight, right? And then I would say, okay, what's the story? Okay, that my mind is saying things. What's my mind saying? It's saying, what if I leave the house and my car doesn't work and I don't have anyone to call and I can't get back and I'm like laying on the ground with no help? That's what my mind would be telling me. And I would say, okay, gotcha. That's what the mind's saying. Now, what's my little tiny action that I can take to create a new story? So what I would start to do is I would get up in the morning I would be okay. I would start to feel the fear. I would start to re-experience the story. By 2 o'clock, I was so exhausted from what my mind was doing that I would go right to bed and I would just like hover and hold the sheets all the rest of the day. Watch movies, get into comfort zone. Problem is, I didn't have anybody to talk to. My phone never rang. I couldn't call anybody because I never left my apartment unless I absolutely had to. So the little action that I would create is at 2 o'clock when the fear would really start to dig in, I would say, okay, I'm going to go out for no longer than 10 minutes. And I would only make it 10 minutes because I knew even in the depths of this constant worry, what my mind was doing, the fear that was saying, Krista, if you leave the house, you're never going to get home again. You're never going to you don't even have anybody to call because you don't talk to anybody. So I knew that I could, even in the midst of that story, I could believe that I could stay out for 10 minutes successfully. So I would say, all right, when the fear hits, I'm going to go out and I'm going to walk around. I'm just going to take a quick little walk. I'm not going to go very far. I can always make it for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to come back, and if I want to lay around the rest of the day, I can do that, no problem. And so what would happen is I started to build these little experiences of being outside, not having someone to call, and enjoying myself. One day I went out and I had my little camera, and I started shooting pictures of these. There was a highway that was being built. I lived in an industrial part of town, and they had these little concrete blocks that they used to build the highway with. And I would take pictures of that. One of my 10-minute strolls was taking these little pictures. And I took those pictures and I was able to make an art series out of them, and I sold them. And if I wouldn't have been able to realize that story, put a little action within it so that I can build new experiences and new memories, I wouldn't have had the added benefit of an experience of doing something that I love to do, of walking outside, enjoying what I see, coming back, and making an art scene out of it. So anyway, what I encourage people to do is look at what our mind is doing, make these little actions around doing something new to create a new experience for it. I'm going to leave you with that today. Let me know what you think. If you think this topic would help other people, feel free to share it. Feel free to let me know if there are other topics you want to explore in a Facebook Live. I would love to hear them. And if you are in a place where it would be helpful to you to have somebody to walk with you on your Meniere's journey, take a look at who you really are, see what we can do to lower symptoms by looking at nutrition and stress, but also figuring out who you really are, how you express who you really are. You're welcome to book a strategy call with me. We put our heads together. We talk about what your life is like, what your support situation is like, what you'd like to see happen in the next 3 months or so. And then I'll let you know about the one-on-one mentoring. You can either say, you know, Krista, that sounds great, let's get started. Or you can say, you know what, that's really not for me. All of that is okay. If you're interested, just put in the comments strategy session or send me a quick private message and I'll get back to you. And today, just if you do feel stress or anxiety, just realize that it's not who you are. You're this other person that can be fully expressed, fully realized, that's just underneath that stress and anxiety. Realize it's not you. It is just what your mind's doing. Create little new actions around it. Create new memories and experiences. And you'll start to have those days where you feel like you're getting in front of it, or it doesn't bring you down as much. Anyway, my name is Krista, and I hope you're having a good day, and I'll see you on the next run.